and welcome to another gentle descent into the past. Tonight, we'll open the doors to a world once lost, now rediscovered through quiet storytelling. Perhaps you're lying still beneath the covers or letting the last hours of the day melt away. Either way, I'm honored to have you here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Are we continents apart or just a few time zones away? Both listening as the stars come out. If you enjoy resting to soft-spoken tales and thoughtful history, be sure to subscribe. There's so much more to uncover together. Tonight, we're descending into the shadowy underworld of a 19th century Chinatown, where opium wasn't just a drug. It was the thread that wove together stories of addiction, survival, racism, and the complex web of human desires that shaped early America. This isn't just another history lesson. This is the story of real people whose lives were forever changed by three small words that would echo through San Francisco's streets for decades. Have you piped? But before we step through those hidden doorways, let me paint you a picture of just how deep this rabbit hole goes. We're talking about a time when addiction knew no boundaries of race or class, when Chinese immigrants faced laws specifically designed to criminalize their very existence, and when the city's most respectable citizens would secretly frequent the same establishments they publicly condemned. The stories I'm about to share with you reveal a San Francisco that most history books prefer to keep buried. In this journey, you'll discover how a single plant transformed an entire neighborhood into America's most notorious district. You'll meet the characters who built this hidden empire, from the shrewd businessmen who saw opportunity in addiction to the desperate souls who found temporary escape in bamboo pipes and oil lamps. Most importantly, you'll understand how the fear and fascination surrounding these opium dens shaped San Francisco's Chinatown and ignited racial tensions that would influence American immigration policy for generations. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the exotic allure of forbidden substances and secret rooms. It's how these events reveal the uncomfortable truth about human nature, about how we create enemies out of those who are different from us, and how addiction becomes both a personal tragedy and a political weapon. Let me take you back to where it all began. The year was 1848, and James Marshall discovered something glittering in the American River that would change California forever. But while thousands of fortune seekers rushed westward, chasing dreams of easy wealth, another group was already making a different kind of journey across the Pacific. Chinese laborers fleeing poverty and political upheaval in Guangdong province began arriving in San Francisco Bay aboard crowded ships carrying little more than hope and the clothes on their backs. Among these immigrants was a man named Toy, though that wasn't his real name. In those days, most Chinese immigrants adopted simpler names that white Americans could pronounce, abandoning their family histories like excess baggage. Toy had been a merchant back in Canton, but here in Gold Mountain, as the Chinese called California, he was just another face in the crowd of laborers willing to work for wages that white miners wouldn't accept. But Toy possessed something that would prove far more valuable than any gold nugget. He understood the art of comfort. Back in China, he had occasionally visited the opium houses that dotted the Pearl River Delta, not as an addict, but as a businessman who recognized opportunity when he saw it. He knew that men far from home, whether they were digging in mountain streams or laying railroad track across impossible terrain, would pay almost anything for a few hours apiece. By 1850, Toy had saved enough money to rent a small basement room on what would later become Grant Avenue. The space was barely large enough for 6 wooden bunks arranged around a central brazier, but it was here that San Francisco's first opium den quietly opened its doors. He hung a simple red lantern outside, nothing more than a colored piece of glass that cast an eerie glow onto the wooden sidewalk below. To most passers-by, it looked like just another Chinese establishment, but to those who knew what to look for, that red light was an invitation to forget. The ritual was always the same. Customers would descend narrow wooden stairs that creaked under their weight, following the sweet, cloying scent that grew stronger with each step. The air grew thicker, warmer, filled with whispered conversations in half a dozen languages. Artoy would greet each visitor with a subtle nod. No names exchanged, no questions asked. Payment was collected up front, usually in gold dust weighed on a small brass scale that gleamed in the lamplight. Then came the ceremony that would become as familiar as breathing to thousands of San Francisco residents over the next 3 decades. The customer would lie on their side on one of the bunks, head resting on a hard wooden pillow that forced them to face the oil lamp burning in the center of the room. Artoy would prepare the pipe with practiced precision, heating a small ball of black tar over the flame until it bubbled and released its intoxicating vapor. The customer would draw deeply, holding the sweet smoke in their lungs as long as possible before exhaling slowly. For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. The noise of the gold fields, the cruelty of prejudice, the ache of homesickness, all dissolved into a haze of warm light and drifting smoke. This was Artoy's genius. He wasn't selling a drug, he was selling escape. Word spread quickly. At first, only fellow Chinese laborers came, men too poor or too cautious to risk spending their wages on gambling halls or whiskey saloons. But soon, curiosity drew others, sailors fresh off the docks, drifters with no fixed address, even respectable gentlemen who preferred the anonymity of Chinatown to the polished parlors uptown. By the late 1850s, San Francisco authorities were well aware of the dens, yet rather than shut them down, many policemen and city officials turned a blind eye. So long as their palms were properly greased, corruption ran deep and Chinatown became a world within a world, its red lanterns glowing like secret constellations against the foggy night. But as the city grew, so too did resentment. White laborers, unable to compete with the lower wages accepted by Chinese immigrants, began to see Chinatown not just as foreign, but as dangerous. Newspapers sensationalized lurid tales of innocent white women lured into dens, their lives destroyed by the mysterious Oriental drug. In reality, many of these stories were exaggerations, yet they fed the flames of fear. The opium pipe became a symbol, not merely of addiction, but of racial difference. And in the charged atmosphere of post-gold rush California, that symbol was weaponized. Still, within the walls of Artoy's den and dozens like it, the rituals continued unchanged. The lamp flickered, the smoke curled upward, and weary men sought forgetfulness in the company of strangers. What began as a simple basement room had grown into an underground empire, each den hidden in plain sight, stitched together by whispers, bribes, and the quiet glow of red lanterns. For the immigrants who built these places, opium was more than escape. It was survival. Work was brutal, wages meager, and hostility unrelenting. The pipe offered a few hours of calm in a world that refused to grant them dignity. But for the city at large, the story was different. Each puff of smoke carried with it not just the weight of an individual's sorrow, but the spark of a larger conflict, one that would shape the very laws of the nation. By the 1870s, Chinatown's opium dens were no longer secret. They had become a fixture of San Francisco nightlife, whispered about in bar rooms, printed in newspapers, and exploited by politicians eager to stir up fear. Journalists described them with breathless fascination, painting lurid images of dimly lit chambers where pale-faced addicts wasted away in smoky oblivion. The truth was more complicated. For every addict who lost himself entirely to the pipe, there were many who visited casually, much like others would visit a tavern. The dens were not always dens of despair, but places of community, gathering points for men cut off from family, culture, and home. They were places where Cantonese songs mingled with Irish laughter, where gold dust paid for comfort when hope was scarce. Yet the darker stories persisted. Lawmakers saw in opium not only a convenient villain, but a tool. By portraying the dens as corrupting white youth, they justified discriminatory laws aimed squarely at Chinese immigrants. In 1875, San Francisco passed the nation's first anti-opium ordinance, criminalizing the practice of smoking rather than the drug itself. Why? Because Chinese immigrants smoked it. White Americans who consumed opium mostly through laudanum tinctures and patent medicines remained untouched by the law. The target was clear. The pipe became a symbol of the other, a justification for exclusion and control. Artoy, by then an older man, watched the empire he had helped create turn into a battlefield of politics and prejudice. His basement had long since expanded into larger establishments, but the risk had grown too. Raids became common. Newspapers printed his name with disdain. To some, he was a corrupter of morals. To others, a symbol of Chinatown's resilience. Still, every night, the ritual went on, a red lantern glowing softly in the fog, narrow stairs leading downward, a sweet, cloying scent growing thicker with each step, men lying on hard wooden pillows, watching the flame dance, breathing deeply, seeking forgetfulness. And outside, the city pulsed with contradiction, denouncing what it could not resist, criminalizing what it secretly consumed, building laws that would echo for generations. The story of San Francisco's opium dens is not simply about addiction. It is about survival, hypocrisy, and the uneasy ways cultures collide. It is about how a single plant became both scapegoat and sanctuary. Most of all, it is about people. The men who built these hidden rooms, the laborers who found comfort there, the reformers who fought against them, and the lawmakers who used fear to redraw the very boundaries of America.